Yeah, each year, you got new guys that haven't been here that get to experience it, and it's quite impressive. And we try to get in there Friday. So come Saturday, you just focus on football, not staring around, taking pictures and that stuff. Try to get that done on Friday.
Do you talk to your guys about the stage at this point? I mean, you've got a more experienced group this year, but you have to have those talks about environment and stage and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think you always have to. And, when you play on the stage, and we're going to play on a lot of indoor arenas this year against the defending national champ, North Dakota State. And, so for us, just getting on the road, that experience of getting on the road the next 2 weeks is huge for us because we got to play Missouri Valley Football Conference games in hostile play 3 dome teams, so it's going to be loud in those domes that can almost equal any arena, in the country when you're indoors. So having the opportunity to go play a Big Ten team, and they're big, they're physical, they're strong. Coach Smith has shown, and he got there last year just like he did at Oregon State and built the program, and you can see how much better they are this year. And so for us, it's a great challenge to see where we are as we get ready for league play.
So what is like in these kind of 5 game type things? What is most important to you guys to kind of take away and kind of learn from these kinds of experiences that you can use for the rest of the season?
Going in, you prepare like any other game. You want to see growth from week 2 to week 3. We always say that growth from week 1 to week 2. Well, we got to continue to get better. It's about our execution. It's about our preparation. The preparation, regardless who we're playing, a Tuesday practice, Wednesday practice, got to be the same. It's got to be physical. You got to have great pad level. We've got to play with great fundamentals. Now we just get to do it against a Big Ten school.
Now, how important is it to come out of this game healthy?
Yeah, and football's a violent sport. I worry every day we come out of practice. Are you coming out healthy? We don't play patty cake. We're playing football. It's a physical game. Those offense and defensive linemen, they go every day. It's live up front. So, no matter what game, that's you play football, and guess what can happen? Injury can happen, and that's where you try to build depth. And that's what we've tried to do over the last 5 years was build depth. So, you just spoke to Alex McDonald. Great we didn't have our two starting tight ends. We haven't had our starting tight end this year yet. And then Austin Bray didn't play. Who was the back? Was the other starter? We play with 2 tight ends. So all of a sudden now you're down to Alex McDonald, and Michael Manna, and they're able to go in and not miss a beat. So that's what you try to look for. We deal with that. I don't think I came out and say, hey, we're without Colt Seacrest the last 2 weeks, but we knew we were, and we had to get other guys ready. And it's great having other guys ready. Just like Preston Zandier was out for the first half of the football game. Graydon Rollins stepped in and filled in and got the experience he needed.
Turnover-wise, you got 5 already this year.
Mm-hmm.
So what's kind of been
I just think you play faster when you know what you're doing. I think our kids understand the scheme of it. I think their football IQ has really expanded. That's probably where I've seen the most growth from last year to this year is football IQ. If you're thinking, it's hard to play the game of football. And we do have a lot of stuff, whether it's offensively, defensively. And I tell our young men, that's why you got to get it down. You got to study. We're allowed 20 hours a week. And if you think 20 hours is going to get you ready on your own, you better understand what the game plan is. You better understand what formations, what motions. And if you're thinking during a play, you're probably not playing fast. And we still see that. We're not there yet. Especially offensively, in our receiver room, a lot of those guys are thinking. If I just showed them a card, run this route, they'd go and make great plays. But when you're thinking, it slows you down and you're not being able to react. So I think defensively, that's the growth I saw. And I saw it in the spring, saw it in the summer. Now can we see it playing the next level? We're playing the highest level, Power 4, playing Big Ten. And now can we do that going into Saturday's game at 3:30?
Just to follow up Neil's question, I know when people think Youngstown State, Michigan, the first thing that comes to mind is the money game, and it works that way with all FCS programs. But do you like playing this type of game?
Yeah, I do. although it's the first time, the money you receive, I still think their starting quarterback makes more. So for the first time, I think he's over. I think he makes more than our budget. So it's funny how college football is. First time I'm thinking, wow, we're playing a game where, shoot, they're making more than what our budget is, or what we're getting for the game. But for us, we're always going to look, and we have great. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful for schools like Michigan State, Ohio State, Kentucky, who continue to schedule it because we need it. It is about money. College football. If you're not up here, you're at the bottom. Unfortunately for us, we don't have to compare ourselves to Michigan State or Ohio State when it comes to finances. We got to look at the top programs in FCS and say, yeah, we want to be in that top 5. We want to be a top 5 program, and that gives you a chance. And it starts, unfortunately, in today's world, it starts with money.
With the guys that you guys brought in on the defensive line this offseason, how much of that do you feel like it played a role in the improvement that you've seen from the run defense?
First and foremost, those guys are buying time for our younger guys. We knew we had to get some older guys, so we went to what we've had success. Find those Division II guys that have played a lot of reps at the Division II level. To get a guy like Thomas Jolly from Grand Valley, he played a lot of football, great program at Grand Valley, and he's a Cleveland Benedictine guy. So that's a perfect scenario for us. But for those guys to give us time, Connor Johannesson, who I think is going to be a really good defensive tackle for us, he don't have to play 40 snaps. A Michael Wright, a Bilal Tucker, they don't have to be thrown into the fire until they're ready. And it was great getting them 7 or 8 reps on Saturday. But having those guys, Cam Cunningham, Parker Jacobs, and Thomas Jolly, and Colin Vaughn, it just gives us time to get those younger guys developed. But, if we got to play them, I know we can play them. So it's always great having that depth at the D-line. And we knew coming out of spring ball, that's what we needed to do. We needed to find that 1,200 pounds of guys up front, and 4 guys can find in 1,200 pounds. And it helps with the linebackers. But the challenge is now, I told our kids, what we put on tape is who we are. And trust me, they have the personnel. They probably have someone assigned and watch every kid, every play. And, if you had bad eye discipline in the back end, if you had bad technique on the offense and defensive line, they're going to know it, and they're going to try to expose it. So we're continuing to improve upon, hey, we got to clean this stuff up on film because, teams are going to start taking advantage. Now they got film on you from 2 games. We got to clean that stuff up, especially when you're going against Big Ten because, again, they got a lot of personnel to sit there and, check out your kids and see who can we attack this Saturday.
There is no such thing as a perfect game, but, you bottle up the first 2 games with no turnovers and kind of bring that to the table this week.
Yeah, you do. If we can take care of the football, I mean, that's first and foremost is take care. Now, you don't take care of the football by not being afraid to throw the ball. Like, you got to throw the ball, and that's going to happen. There's going to be interceptions, but taking care of the football gives you a chance. And the one thing I'll say about Michigan State, you watch, they're one of their best football players, and you guys probably don't even realize their punter is unbelievable. They've had 9 of 14 inside the 2-yard line on punt. So when you're watching film of them, you want to talk about offensive having to work upfield, uphill. They're on the inch-yard line to start a drive. And it was at the end of the game, and they're in shotgun, Oregon State, and they're handing the ball 5 yards deep, and it's a tie game, and they just try, but he places the ball. It's like a golf shot. It is unbelievable. And they had a safety against Western Michigan because of that. So field position is so critical. So taking care of the football. Coming off last week's game, was not happy with our special teams. Wasn't. And I was praising them the week before, and all of a sudden now, our coverage teams, guess what? They got a great punt returner. They got a great kickoff returner, and those are hidden yards in a game that make a difference. And, we got to make sure we're a lot better in those coverage teams.
the history of some of these matchups. Do you go back with your guys and talk about the pits and your game with Ohio State a few years ago, how close these games can be? And they're not just Big Ten versus FCS. These are
Yeah.
people versus people.
Kids, they're in today's world. Yeah, to go back, I wish I could, I try to not to reminisce or show, but you can show just in our league. And here's the reality. The reality is if North Dakota beats Kansas State, you could beat North Dakota. You may even have a better record than North Dakota, but guess who's getting the playoff spot? Meaning nothing against North Dakota, but if they win that game, you could have a better, we've seen it. You could have a better league record. You could have beat them head up. It don't matter. They're putting you in because you beat an FBS program. So that's real. And that's important when it comes to the FCS and playoffs, which we all have goals. So, like I said, to go back in time, we do our kids, we study history of our program and the traditions. But there's been enough FCS that have been able to do it. And when you do, it's such a huge advantage at the end of the season for you.
Does that change your approach to the NIL and choosing these future opponents to make sure that you have the right FBS opponent and maybe not the ones that have tens of millions of dollars in rosters and getting guys that you can beat so that when the playoff committee's talking, they can say, hey, listen, this is a signature win.
Yeah, but these ones give a little more money. So you can play other FBS and you're probably not getting, the same money. And, our people upstairs, I trust them. They make the schedules, but they really find that if we're going to play one, we got to find the one that has the biggest payouts. And, that's probably why you see Michigan States, the Ohio States, Kentucky's, and you don't see maybe another lower FBS, on there because they probably don't pay as much. And if you're going to play it, you'd want to see some benefits for your athletics, your football team, and your athletic program.
So with that being said, would you like to play two of these?
No, no. One's enough. Doesn't mean I wouldn't play other FBS programs. I told you there's a league in the state of Ohio. Would love to get, Matt, I really would, just not, me personally, but for our fans, because again, we play teams that they probably, so far away, but to be able to drive in the state of Ohio and see the Penguins play, I think would be great. We're always open to that.